Dustin, I know the debut didn't go the way you hoped for it. I guess what did you take out of that one?
Yeah, you said that right. It's a little bit hard to take a whole lot from that fight, mostly just because I hate making excuses for stuff. I really, really do. It pains me to even say it, but I was really, really suffering from the long-term effects of COVID, and I got tired within like a minute and a half, and that like never happens to me. And between just being exhausted and not really being able to do what I usually do, and a bit of the panic that set in, the frustration of not being able to fight, really put me on the defensive for most of the fight. And yeah, so the biggest takeaway from that fight was to take care of myself in training, and if I'm sick, then do something about it, and not just sort of put on my blinders and keep going, which is what I did.
I was gonna say, did you know from your training like this is not going to be good, or did it get was it just worse during the fight?
I just didn't think about it. I really just did not think about it. So I had COVID in October, and had to quarantine for 3 weeks, and that bumped our fight back 2 weeks, I think. And then I thought, okay, that should be enough time. We'll just go for it. And then I came back into training, felt really bad, but I thought, okay, you just had 3 weeks of quarantine. Obviously, you're going to be feeling bad. You just need to get used to it again. And so that went on for a little bit, and then I was still feeling bad, and I was like, well, you know what? You've been training 2-3 times a day. Of course you're going to be feeling crappy. And then I was like, well, the week before the fight, you'll feel better after that. And that just wasn't the case.
So I was going to ask, 8 months, was that by design? Did you take extra time between fights? I'm sure if you were healthy, you would have fought frequently, more frequently. Was that by design?
That was by design. I had decided as soon as the fight was over, I was not even going to think about scheduling a fight until I could train normally again. And that took a really long time. Not because the effects were really that bad. It turned out just to be a micronutrient deficiency. Just needed to take the right supplements and I was fine. But it took until April until we found out what it actually was. So lots and lots of tests, lots of working with different doctors and hospitals and specialists until we actually found out what was going on. Because it being a respiratory disease, everyone's looking at heart and lungs, heart and lungs, heart and lungs, and it just took a really long time before they're like, well, the effects are a lot like overtraining. Maybe it's a supplement or maybe it's a nutrient deficiency, and that's what it ended up being.
Crazy. So I guess now is this kind of feel like your debut in a way? Like, hey, I know I'm 100%?
It feels like my debut with a lot more pressure because now I had that very disappointing performance. Even if I would have lost, it would have been a lot easier to swallow if I could have at least put up a performance that shows what I can do. And so that having that really lackluster performance be my first real introduction into the UFC was heartbreaking, to be honest. And so now it does feel like my debut. It's like this is a real Dustin coming in, but with more pressure.
Understood. What do you think about the matchup with Rodolfo? Obviously a specialist. You know what he's going for, right?
Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think Rodolfo is the best opponent that I could have wished for in the UFC roster right now, as far as his skills matching up to mine and his name being as big as it is. I think I have a really, really good chance to finish this fight and to really show what I can do. Of course, especially in the first round, the guy's an absolute beast on the ground. It could go pretty sour and he ends up choking me out, but I think I have a really, really good chance in this fight, and I'm really excited to show you all what I can actually do.
That's awesome. And last thing for me, I was going to ask, obviously you want to get your hand raised, you want to get a win, but is that the goal, to kind of put on a performance that makes people realize, hey, that wasn't really me out there last time?
Winning will do that.
Hey, man. Just to clarify, you said the nutrition deficiency was that definitely related to the COVID, or was it something you just had underlying that they didn't even bother checking because you'd had the COVID?
I don't want to go too much in detail about it because for fear of messing things up and saying something wrong.
Okay.
But as far as I understood it, me having COVID really threw my immune system for a loop. And then I ended up getting an intestinal tract infection. And that, along with COVID together, just sucked a whole bunch of really vital micronutrients out of my system.
Just a real fun time.
Real fun time. Yeah.
That's it.
Right. I was gonna ask. I saw your Instagram. Just how does one channel their inner Sean Strickland for a fight?
Lots of jabs to the nose. I don't know, and lots of insults. Yeah. Just be mean and be nasty.
What was it like getting some work in with him? Obviously, he also has a big fight coming up around this time.
We didn't work too much together because he's not necessarily the kind of guy you want to be sparring with a lot right before your own fight. But we got one really good round in, and then. But we worked together before. Leading up to my Contender Series fight, we did some sparring. So I know him mostly from that. We trained a lot more right before that fight than for this one.
Thanks.
This might sound like a weird question, but is there any relief that you've got that UFC loss out of the way? Like, hey, I've done it. I got through it. I'll be okay. I can survive a loss. Is there any bit of a little bit of relief that that's out of the way? You can be honest.
That's a hard question. There is a certain type of relief that does come from having failed and having worked through that. That definitely is a phenomenon that I've experienced before. But it having been my debut and it going the way that it did, not so much a relief for me, more a little bit more pressure than it would have otherwise been. Because otherwise you go up against a guy like Rodolfo Vieira, it's like, well, if you get choked out, you get choked out by one of the best people in the world. But now it's like, there's that chance. And like all these people that know nothing about me now think that just my fight against Dawkins is what I can actually do. And that's just not the case.
Was there fear that you wouldn't get another chance? Because I mean, sometimes we see people cut for, and we're like, why? Why? So was that also part of the pressure?
I wasn't too worried about it. I mean, obviously the UFC can cut me whenever they want, which brings definitely a certain sense of uncertainty into any fight. But I don't think I'm expensive enough for the UFC to just get rid of after one fight. I don't think they would care too much. If I was like on my second or third contract and I'm making $100,000 for just to show up, and then after that performance, I would be a little worried, but that's not the case yet. So, yeah, so a little bit, but not too much.